ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for 502 Sports. Hey everyone, welcome to a new edition of 502 Sports, brought to you by our friends at Take Tie. I'm your host, Adam Hitt, alongside Jimmy Nolan and Adam Wilkinson. We've got a lot to discuss today, but gentlemen, how are you all doing today?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
Doing well.
I'm doing fantastic.
You guys been out playing a lot of golf this spring? What's summer heading
I
into?
wish.
No?
I haven't seen the golf course in a long time.
You haven't? I
No.
find that hard to believe.
I know. You would think so. I think you guys have seen it more than I have.
Oh man, well I played once with you, Mister Hit, and our producer. The first few holes were a struggle, but I got my groove going as we went along.
Yep. Well, hopefully we can get out and enjoy some more golf here before the season's over. It'll be ending quick.
Summer's
It feels
coming,
like
buddy.
it's- I know.
School's letting out. Yeah, it's
We'll get-
it's definitely getting to be some nice golf weather. So
Get out and get embarrassed by the producer a little bit more.
All right, gentlemen, let's jump in right away here. Really, one of the biggest horse racing stories in the last, 5 to 10 years. And it's big for the 502, and Churchill Downs Incorporated is looking to acquire the rights to the Preakness Stakes, which would be the second leg of the Triple Crown. There's a lot of pieces that go into this, but essentially they started to enter into an agreement for $85 million to buy the rights to the Preakness Stakes, and the Black-Eyed Susan. I think there's a lot of different avenues here for this, and then we also learned that the state of Maryland is also, potentially looking to try to get the money to match that valuation so that they can keep it in the state. But wanted to kind of start with that and see what your all's thoughts are. With Churchill Downs potentially acquiring the Preakness Stakes, or potentially it staying with the state of Maryland, to keep it at in Maryland and keep those rights within the state.
Well,
yeah, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say,
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
something needs to happen, I think, in order to keep horse racing, and especially the Triple Crown, up and kind of in front of everything.
relevant.
Relevant, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes. So I know why Churchill is wanting to do that. It makes sense. They could possibly move the date back to kind of, spread it out a little bit more, because there's only, 3 horses this year that ran both the Derby and the Preakness. And the Preakness looks like
that's
the
always
redheaded
been
stepchild right now.
that's always been an
So
argument.
it
Is so many horses from the Kentucky Derby skip the Preakness,
Yeah.
and they look forward to the Belmont more,
Yeah.
especially more of your longer distance horses instead of your sprinters. Yeah,
They
yeah. Why I don't understand why Churchill necessarily wants to go after the Preakness like this. Um,
It's money.
Yeah.
well, everything is money, right?
Yeah.
Like everything in sports is all around the almighty dollar. But uh, I don't know what like. Are they wanting to move it back another week? Are they wanting to move the actual race to Churchill Downs? Like
Yeah.
I feel like that would be kind of a slight toward
I do too.
Maryland, and
I
yeah,
would hope it's more scheduling basis. Try to, hey, let's push it out maybe till 4th of July weekend. Spread it out to where you got the Derby, then 3-4 weeks later you got Preakness, or you keep the Belmont where it is and you put the Preakness after the Belmont. That way you give the horses more time to recover, and you get the best horses in all 3 races.
or should they just make a stipulation where, hey, if you enter in the Derby, you have to enter in the other 3, barring injuries or, anything medically wrong with the animals?
I don't know if you
Yeah.
can force that, but
Nah, of course not. You
Yeah.
can't force it. I'm just kind of spitballing ideas, but
yeah.
Yeah.
but I think the great allure of the Kentucky Derby is the large field.
Absolutely.
And there are so many stories that are run about the trainers, the owners, the jockeys. And I think you lose a lot of that whenever you go to a Preakness Stakes that has 9 or 10 horses. It's just not as exciting, especially if one of or multiple favorites from the Kentucky Derby decide to forego the race at Pimlico and look toward New York and the
mean,
Belmont.
I hate seeing the Derby winner skip the Preakness. To me, it's
Well, that's another thing. Yeah, like you have a shot at glory to go
yeah.
after the Triple Crown, and what's stopping you? Is it the 2-week turnaround between races? I understand that is a very short time
Mhm.
for these horses to run, with such magnitude and large stakes on the line.
It's always been that way though, and you've always seen Preakness fields and Belmont Stakes fields much smaller than the Derby,
Yeah.
So
for
let
many reasons, but
But
so guys,
if you're an owner, like, oh, sorry, man, I didn't mean to cut you off. But if you, I was just say, if you're an owner, like, let's say your horse wins the Kentucky Derby, obviously, the stud fees are going to go through the roof. But can you charge more if you say that you have a Triple Crown winner? Like, is it really that
oh,
important?
100% you can.
You think so? Like, is
Oh,
it
yeah.
really that important
absolutely.
Yeah.
to call your horse a Triple Crown winner as instead of he's a
For
Kentucky Derby winner? Like, come on. Like,
stud fees,
as I say, you think
absolutely.
American Pharoah's going to get more than, just average
100%.
Kentucky Derby
Yes.
winner? You think
100%.
so?
Oh,
Yeah,
without
definitely.
question.
I think they would be able to charge the same amount.
No,
You don't
not
think
even
so?
close, not even close.
So
I think I need to look that up. In the
if we're
next show, I
talking
need to
about
bring that
money,
back up.
Yes.
so if we're talking about money, I
Yeah.
mean, the TV broadcast money
That
alone by consolidating 2 of the 3 Triple Crown winners would be substantial, but I totally get this from Churchill Downs' perspective because they would own the rights, so they could do anything that they
mhm,
wanted to. If they were able to acquire the rights to the Preakness Stakes, they could move the date if they wanted to. They could enter a lease with Pimlico to keep it at Pimlico if they wanted to. They could move it to Churchill Downs if they wanted to because they own the rights. They could do essentially whatever they wanted and enter into any agreement that they wanted to. So I think for them, it's seeing something that is really undervalued right now in the Preakness Stakes because one, Pimlico has been kind of falling apart, and the state of Maryland is investing about 400 million into
if
that
I
track to
Well,
try to
yeah.
if I
revitalize it.
recall right, didn't they completely tear it down and rebuilding it?
Yeah, I mean
That's why they
they're
moved
doing
it out of
massive, yeah,
Pimlico this year.
massive renovations there, but it is in the interest of the state of Maryland to try to make sure they keep that race at Pimlico.
Yeah,
Sure, they've got
Otherwise, then they're investing all this money in Pimlico for no reason. For one of the crown
yeah,
jewels of
no.
horse
I
racing.
think
well,
logically, because both the Derby and Pimlico's ran and the Preakness are on NBC. Was I think Belmont's Fox or ABC?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
So it
they're
makes sense.
fragmented. So today they're all
It
essentially separate,
Yeah, so it would
separate
make sense
events.
for Churchill to start, keep it at Pimlico, keep it in Maryland, and TV wise, let's either put it after the Belmont or somehow change it where it spreads it out more. That keeps it more relevant. I think that's if
yeah.
you're Churchill, that's where you start at
Yeah,
least.
well, then you're gonna get an uproar from the Belmont. I think the Belmont, but they enjoy being the last
Well, would
round.
have to, put a little bit of skin in the game and be willing to move their date back, maybe to 4th of July. So
Well,
you could move the Preakness
I think they're
to
already 3 weeks out from the Preakness now. I think
yeah,
that
so
got
that puts it
pushed back
you could say, all right, put
'cause it
the
used to be 2
Bel if they don't
weeks.
wanna
Yeah.
move it, put Belmont at Labor Day weekend and then the Preakness at 4th of July. I think that's perfect.
Well, I think
But that's a
really like
long
they're
stretch.
so
It is,
they're
but
gentlemen. So like one of the things is like they may not have a choice of when this
mm-mm,
is because if they say okay, we now own 2 of the 3 Triple Crown races, and then they go to NBC, ESPN, Netflix, Amazon, any of those streaming
yeah,
services and say, "Hey, we've got 2 of the 3 Triple Crown events, and how much are you going to pay us for those rights?" Um, they're going to be at the mercy of the TV schedules at that point. They're going
yeah.
to have to hold it
Well,
whenever
and
whenever the most money is available for them.
they
But
got
I
the
but I do agree with you, Jimbo, that we would love to see more horses from the Derby compete in the
yeah,
Preakness and actually have a chance for the Triple Crown because that's one of the most
Yeah.
exciting things
it
in horse
is.
racing.
Well, and
It's
it is, like, it's the dreaded, do you get the number 1 position? Like, does that really matter in a 7 or 8 horse field of the Preakness? When you're dealing with 20 horses, you
that's a
really wanna be
big
coming from the
difference.
very far outside. Do you sprint ahead of the
Yeah,
pack and try and, get in that first third and you're not getting your horse with all the dirt and mud kicked up in their face? It's definitely a big strategy when you have a big horse field. Um, and I think you lose some of the excitement when you don't have as many horses in the field. I think that's a big draw for the Kentucky Derby. Um,
especially when the best horses don't run in the Preakness or the Belmont.
yeah,
You're
right.
not
Like,
getting the best of the best at that point.
yeah, like I'm sorry, I apologize to our fans out there. I've not done clearly enough research, but in order to get into the Kentucky Derby, you have to qualify with so many
Yeah,
points.
yeah.
Is that the same thing for Preakness and Belmont? You know, because there are horses that run in those races that don't run in the Kentucky Derby. So I mean, it really is the best of the best running for the Kentucky Derby, and we can't always say that when it comes to the Preakness. to go off the viewership, NBC said they pulled 19.5 million viewers
Yeah.
for the Kentucky Derby, 4.6
Well, I mean,
for the
that's
Preakness.
talking about
That's
the
a
TV ratings.
huge drop
That's
off.
and
That's the opportunity there for
yeah,
Churchill, though, is
absolutely.
to get that audience carried over from one race to the next and get more people betting and going to the races and,
Because
Well, then
increasing the
then the
yeah,
big
value so that
question,
they can sign those massive media
how do you
contracts.
do that?
well, Churchill
How
just
do you
says, "Hey,
draw interest for the Preakness?
you gotta spread it out," and Churchill can say, "Hey, look, you got the" talking about going to the streaming services or other TV providers, like, you got the Derby, that's the biggest horse race probably in the world, right? So
Yes,
you
yes. The
tie
Kentucky
that in
Derby, yes, is the
with the
biggest.
Preakness, yeah, you're gonna be able to do that, you can tie it in, any of the media marketing campaigns, you can
But
easily
let me
tie
ask you a question, and both of you, honestly, do you care about the Preakness if the Kentucky Derby winner is not racing?
No, I didn't even watch it. If the Derby
I mean, I
winner was
Like,
watched it.
racing,
yeah,
I
like,
watched
I
I'll
it.
would've
pay
watched it,
attention,
yeah.
maybe I'll watch it, maybe.
If the
And if
Derby
somebody
winner
says, "Oh,
races,
the
yes.
Preakness went off," and I'll say, "Oh, who won?" Like, that's all I give the Preakness. If the Kentucky Derby winner's not in the Preakness, yeah, I don't care.
I don't
If
either.
the Kentucky Derby winner is in the Preakness, it's still not an event for me to watch.
But that's the whole point of Churchill
But I'll
acquiring the
ask.
Yeah.
rights,
No,
is
I
that
was
they could do whatever they want and move it to make it a more exciting and more
Sure,
valuable
yeah.
but then your
piece.
$1,000,000 question is, what are they gonna do to make it, desirable, you know?
Well, the first thing is they could move it. They could
Yeah,
move the date, and that would immediately make it more desirable because there's a
absolutely.
better chance that those
If
Derby horses are gonna compete in
Yeah,
the Preakness
And
and have a field, like you said, of 20 or more
but then
horses.
how far
especially the
back do you
Derby
move it?
winner.
Like, so for those, it is 2 weeks. Kentucky Derby to Preakness is 2 weeks, and if I saw correctly, I think the Preakness to Belmont is now 3 weeks. They used to be 2 weeks in
3.
between
It
each
used to be
races.
2, 2, and 3, I thought.
Um, no, at one point it was 2 weeks for both.
I don't remember even
I may be kicking
that
it back a few
significant.
extra years, but I know the Belmont is now 3. If with that
Mhm.
being the longest race, obviously those horses are going to need the time to recover. But would adding an extra week matter to some of those horses?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
100% it would.
exactly.
Especially if you're talking 3 or 4 weeks, because then you're
Right.
given the
Mhm.
the athletes, which they are, time to rest up and recover just like any other,
Yeah, I mean, doing
major
Triple
athlete.
Crown in horse racing is one of the most prestigious things you could do as a in sports.
Yep,
It's
I'm a firm believer in this, that Churchill Downs and the Kentucky Derby, hit the jackpot with being the first leg. Like, I think the first leg
mhm.
is the most important, because if the horse, A, doesn't race in the Preakness, who cares? If the horse doesn't win the Preakness, how many people are really looking forward to the Belmont? Now, if it's 2 favorites going back and forth at each other, and one wins the Derby and another wins the Preakness, then yeah, I'd love to see the clash at who's gonna win at the Belmont for sure. But unless you have 2 favorites going at it, like, where's the draw? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Well,
That's
they'll
why it's
the
the
draw
main
is
reason to push it
the
back
first race.
push it back a couple weeks to get the best horses in there.
they will brand whoever owns it
Mhm.
now has to brand it as equal to the Derby, or, they have to make that case
And
for
if
that
you
it's that valuable.
and if Churchill Downs owns the rights to the Preakness, are they gonna let the Preakness be equal to the Kentucky Derby?
Absolutely.
Do you
They
think
would
so?
Of course. I
yeah.
mean, they
I
wanna
don't
make
think
more
they
money. I mean,
It's
Sure,
look
yeah,
what they
and
did.
they will.
Look what they did with the Oaks this year. I mean, moving that to prime time, that was a money grab,
Oh, and
right?
oh,
for those that
huge.
don't know, that is gonna stick around. I
Yeah.
know I was at an Oaks get together, and people were, not necessarily up in
A lot
arms
of
about
local
it, but
people
they
are
were
not
like,
happy.
"Man, it's so late. Why are they racing it so late?" Well, they hit 20 million viewers
Yeah,
for the Oaks, which means it's not
no.
going away. Like, you can look
So,
forward to the, 7:30, 8 o'clock race
Yeah.
time,
how
Can you
soon
and
imagine can
how
you
soon would
imagine
they
if
do
they
that for the
expand that?
Derby?
Can you imagine if they
How
expand
they
that for
ex
the
what do
Preakness?
you mean if like, you mean if they
well,
push back the start of the race?
Well,
what are
if
the
they
Like,
how soon
create a
what do
race
you mean?
if
Oh, you
they
mean
create a
expand on it?
race, if they support the entire week of the Preakness like they do for the Derby, how much more money they could potentially bring in. With all the other races, the Black-Eyed Susan, um, all of those things, and build those up like they have the Derby. I mean, they are sitting on an absolute gold
yeah.
mine of,
Well,
of
I
media.
think they would
how
have their work cut out for them. Sorry, Adam. I really don't mean to be cutting you off. Go ahead, Will.
I was gonna
Go
ask,
go
how
ahead.
soon did they put the Derby in prime time? When did they start doing that?
I think
'Cause
we're heading that
it
way.
might be. Do you push back the NBA playoff game? Because I know NBC now
Mm.
owns the NBA, so they
I
right
th
after the Derby this year, they cut to the NBA.
I think maybe
But
or
here's
I
the
think
thing.
NBC says, "Hey, first Saturday in May, let's try not to schedule
No,
a
but
game
here's the
late
thing.
night,
So
maybe an
what
afternoon
you
game, but
said
not a
the
late night
Derby
game."
drew what? 19.5
19,
million?
yeah, 19 and a
The
half. Yeah.
NBA was at no more than 4 or 5? So do you push that off? Do you start that earlier because the viewership is so low on the
Well,
NBA
the
to
whole
get
topic of this conversation is centered around the almighty dollars, and when you have an
yeah.
event that's 4 or 5 times more viewership and, uh, definitely more gambling with all the, the
Mhm.
DraftKings and FanDuel and all that, I'm sure was spiked through the roof whenever, um,
'Cause
I mean,
let's be
heck, even
honest,
Churchill Downs has their Twin
yeah.
Spires account.
I
Like,
mean
yeah, the revenue that it generates is gonna be a heck of a lot more than an
I
NBA
mean,
playoff game,
even
for
the NBA
sure.
finals, like, who cares about the NBA anymore?
I mean, there's
Not that
plenty.
many.
Oh,
I
sure.
mean,
No. There's plenty that care about the NBA and even more care about it during playoff time. Like,
especially in NBA markets, yeah.
well, I
the
mean,
viewership is not there, though.
we're here in a college market,
Yeah, no, if
Louisville,
you look at
Kentucky,
just
but
look at the
I've
viewership, how the
watched
NBA has
plenty.
gone over the last few years, I would put the Derby in prime time over the playoffs just
Sure,
Well, it's the
I
sec
based
absolutely
on
would too. Like,
based on
it's
yeah,
that.
the second biggest event past the Super Bowl is the Derby based on the
Mhm.
ratings. It's the second biggest event past the Super
Yeah.
Bowls.
yeah,
It's right there, and that I mean, that's what they wanna do. They wanna
Then
create the Triple Crown. They want all 3 events to be massive media betting. They wanna do everything
yes.
they can to create that, but they have to own the rights to it to do that.
yeah,
Otherwise, the state of Maryland and those um, I can't remember the first, it's called First Turn, or I can't remember the name of the group that owns it
I
now.
think
Um,
that could be maybe where Churchill's going with this. Let's get the rights of it, use it as a bargaining chip for the TV, whether you stay with NBC, ABC, or you go to Netflix or Amazon. You could they'll probably still keep it in Maryland. I think it would make sense to keep it there.
Well,
And
but I mean,
Pamlico, you're not gonna move it unless
Churchill's a
you
bigger venue. It's a
it is, but I ultimately just sitting here and thinking about it, it's like, it makes sense for them to buy it for TV rights because 'cause they're able to
yes.
package 2 of the 3. You get a much better deal out of that. Then you can go to the Belmont and kinda force their hand a little bit. I
Well,
I
I
I think that's probably the
it's
main
hard for me to
reason for
comment
doing
on
it,
that.
but
Uh,
that's
either way, like there has to be a way to draw up more viewership, and I think the first thing you
mhm,
have to do is you have to do whatever you can to get the Kentucky Derby winner in that race.
absolutely.
If the
At least in
Kentucky
the
Der
second leg, whether it's the Belmont
Yeah.
or the Preakness, the Derby winner needs to, barring injury, should want to race in that. There's
Well,
no
right.
reason
You
not
you
to.
have to make it desirable for them to race, and
Yes.
if having the race out 2 weeks, like, then you start bringing in the health of
So, pushing it
of
back
the
a
horse,
week,
and
2
you're just
weeks,
like, Man, I don't really wanna
yeah.
push my horse that like that."
No,
Like,
I
I've got a
mean,
Kentucky Derby winner, and the last thing I wanna do is have the horse injured.
yeah.
Um, and so then you're looking at the horse's safety, with a quick turnaround, 2 quick
So,
2-week turnaround, so,
I think if you're
yeah, pushing it back does make sense,
does,
absolutely, but I does Churchill Downs need to get involved in purchasing the rights in order to make that happen?
they
Like, that
might,
should be up to the state of Maryland and be like, "Hey, guys, I think we need to push
but
this
if
back."
you're
Like,
doing
our
it
draw is a quarter of what the Kentucky Derby was.
for TV purposes and revenue, I think, yeah, it makes sense for them to do that because then they own the rights, they can sell it for a lot more. I mean, ultimately, I think you got the Derby the first Saturday in May, that's never gonna change. But then I like the idea of either
Why?
having
Why is that never gonna change? See, there's
it's
another thing, like, why can't we
'cause it's the
move
first leg, it doesn't
the
it
first leg up
till
till, I don't know.
because Churchill
there's
Downs owns
owns
it.
it. Yes, they're never going to.
And they are trying to
They
be in charge
yes.
of the entire Triple
So,
Crown in some state here. They're gonna have
yes,
2 of the 3, and then they're gonna have to work
it's the first
with the New
one.
York racing,
They can set
to
the date
figure
on
out the
that.
3rd, yeah.
But I like the idea of you got Derby first Saturday in May, then you go to Labor Day for Preakness or the Belmont, and then 4th of July for the
Yeah,
3rd leg.
yeah, absolutely. I do
TV-wise,
too,
you're
guys.
gonna
I'm
get
just kinda
the
playing devil's
biggest draw, you're gonna get the best bang for your buck, you probably get the most eyes on your product at
Yeah,
that time.
yeah.
I that makes the most sense, and you're keeping the health of the horses, probably best case scenario with that.
So
Yeah.
if we're sitting on a at a round table here at Churchill Downs Incorporated, and the CEO walks in, and the first thing that he does is he says, "All right, what can we do to make the Preakness viewership rise? What can we do?" And, like, granted, we can do a little more, uh, stories on jockeys, trainers, the actual horses themselves and their journeys. Great. But is that going to draw in the viewership? No, it's not. Personally, I think that the number of horses racing needs to go up. I think you got to be in the 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there. More horses means the odds on a lot of these horses also go up, which means more bang for your buck as the average better.
I don't know if you need to have more horses, but you need to have the best horses.
But
You could have
on
an 8-horse field. If you got the top 8 horses, that's
sure,
better
but
than
if you look
a
at
12-horse field that you have for the top 12.
but if you look at a Kentucky Derby, like the top 8 horses, like there's still a giant gap between number 1, 2, and 3 and 6, 7, and 8.
But you still need that's what's gonna draw the viewership is getting the top horses in
But,
those races.
we as Americans love underdog
You
stories
do.
too. Like how
You can still
cool
have
is
the
it that we're
underdog,
like,
yeah.
man, the
Well,
80 to 1 shot,
it's what you had in the Derby this
lost
year.
by a
You had
nose,
Americans love those stories. You had the first female trainer to win the Kentucky Derby.
But
Yes,
isn't that
and
what we're
she
saying is
didn't go
missing
to
from
the
the
she
Preakness?
didn't yeah,
exactly,
Like,
exactly.
why
The number of horses bring in the
you're
more stories, the more uh,
so
human pieces
I think
into the
a big
ball.
part of this is the Churchill Downs marketing portion of this deal, right? If they want to own this so that they can market the heck out of it, expand when that break is between the first and second legs, and get more of those horses in there. Probably that double of the Triple Crown gets them a better media deal. It gets them a lot more money. $85 million for the rights to the Preakness is nothing. They're going to make that back I mean,
they probably made it back
they're
this
gonna make
year
that
on the
back in the
Derby.
TV deal or maybe a few people betting, like,
They
it's not like
Few
they
people betting.
yes, a few more people
Who
betting.
do
one
you
of the few
know?
here,
I mean, okay, but, like, seriously, guys, 85 million in what we're
it's
talking
in the
about
grand
from
scheme of
Churchill
things is a
Downs,
drop in the bucket.
that is absolutely nothing, and
Yeah.
I know it's a lot to us, but, like, it's absolutely nothing for them, so all they would have to do is pay that off, and they would probably be able to do it in 1 year with the amount of increase in betting, the amount of media deals, if they could get some of those bigger horses in,
They might have made
from the
that move in
Derby,
the Oaks to primetime this year.
they probably did, they
Yeah.
probably did.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's
Um,
what I'm saying. It's that's
I
not
mean,
going away.
but
it's smart for Churchill to do that for 85 million. Yeah.
But
Why would you not?
Maryland's not gonna go down without a fight here. They want to keep the rights, and it is
Mhm.
in their best interest to keep the rights because they're investing the
Yeah.
$400 million into Pimlico. If they don't have the rights to the race, there's no guarantee that they could actually keep the race in Pimlico. If Churchill Downs
Yeah.
owns
Mhm.
it, they can do what they want with it. They don't have to contract it out like it's been done in the past with the rights for the Preakness Stakes. So it would be all up in the air. And, if Churchill Downs owns it, they could maximize the value of it with all the things that they've learned from maximizing the value of Derby Week over the past 10, 20 years. They would take those learnings and be able to exponentially grow, their revenue stream from owning 2 of the 3 Triple Crown races.
Well, and how big of a shot in the arm is it for the community of Louisville when the Derby's in town?
Oh, it's
Like the restaurants, the bars, everything, the hotels, it all benefits
yeah,
from the
everything.
Kentucky Derby. So if I'm Maryland, I'm sure the Preakness is the same way for them as well. Like you got to do what you can to try and not lose the Preakness Stakes and keep it in Maryland. Even though Churchill says that though they will lease it and keep it in Maryland on a year by year basis. At some point that year by year can be like, I think we're done. Let's see how well we can do it in Louisville, Kentucky.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
so if I'm Maryland, yeah, I'm matching any offers to try and keep it.
Either
And
that or
I think we
you're
might you could
finding a
possibly
way to
see a
get it in the
bidding war
contract to
then.
keep it at Pimlico for X amount of years, maybe for 10
Yeah.
years, 15 years, and then renegotiate after that. I think it would be beneficial to actually let Churchill own the rights to it for media, the marketing campaign, be able to do that, to go to the TV deals, get the TV
Yeah.
deals, as long as they're able to find a way to keep in the contract, "Hey, this stays at Pimlico,"
Yeah.
or in Maryland at
Well,
least.
and if you're Churchill Downs, like I think the goal could be like if I'm Churchill Downs, I absolutely want to move it to Churchill Downs, just because I think you can maximize so much more
But
on
then you're
the
taking
draw to
I
the
think that
track.
takes away from the Derby then, from the prestige of the Derby, because then you're not may not have as many people coming in for that. They might split it up. Hey, let's go to the Preakness instead.
Sure.
I I don't think maybe you do it once or see how it goes, but in the long run, I think it makes more sense to keep it at Pimlico or Maryland.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I know, they said they were doing the
But
renovations
yeah,
this year, so they clearly weren't
they
able to
could have
draw
brought it
as many.
here
They
for
were
that
they were they
during the
were just
renovations, but
they were just under 5,000 people in attendance because of the renovations this year. But last
was that
year,
a different where was it this year? It wasn't even at
Laurel
Fort
Park.
Laurel Park, thank
Yeah,
you.
Mhm.
yeah. So, but the year prior, they drew just north of
Yeah,
50,000, and that number is just dwarfed when you can see what Churchill Downs brings in.
it does,
So
but it
if you're
also
looking at
helps
a
to have
money standpoint,
that's where you get the Derby winner racing, barring
Mhm.
injury, then you get the best horses, so you spread it out, so you get that.
Well,
That's
another
gonna draw more people.
another aspect, the social aspect. How many times did we
Yeah.
drive by the Louisville International Airport and we see all the private jets, all the
Oh, yeah.
celebrities that
No, I
come in
flew in
town
it,
and they
like, I
make it an event? How many celebrities do they profile at the
it's like,
Preakness?
even this year, I flew in on Thursday, and they're handing out bourbon balls, as soon as you get off the plane, like, at the airport. They make a huge deal out of it here. Well, I don't know if they do that in Baltimore, if
Yeah,
that's
or New York, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, there
but
would definitely be some benefits for them to move it here. Now, obviously, we don't know if that's their intent, but just imagine that the horses would get to stay here for 3 to 4
yeah,
weeks afterwards and then be
Yeah.
able to run in the next race. That makes it a lot easier on these owners and
it
trainers
does.
to keep the horses at Churchill potentially.
Well,
But
and
Maryland's not going to go down without a fight. They're going to
yeah.
try to
Mm,
come up with this money. I would not be surprised if Maryland does come up with the 85 million to match, which they it looks like they have the right to do.
Yes.
In which case it would stay with Maryland. They would then have the rights to the Preakness, which would support the investment that they're already investing in Pimlico, to
but
try to keep it there in Maryland, which I think makes the most sense for them. But obviously, we understand why Churchill would,
if
be
you're
interested in buying it.
Churchill at that point, do you up the offer to 100, 150?
It depends how bad you
'Cause,
want it, like if
like you said, 85 is a drop in the bucket to 'em, so what's another 85?
well, that's true. Like, I mean,
Make it
obviously,
160
they're looking at the
or something.
Preakness, they're looking at Pimlico and Maryland and saying, "We see what you got here,
Mhm.
and we can do better."
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's just a matter of how important is it to get 2 races
yeah,
of the Triple Crown, under your control? How important is that for them? And also what's the end goal? Like, do they
yeah.
wanna,
I think
have control of all 3? Is 2 out of 3 good enough? Like you mentioned, Adam, are they, looking to sell rights to Amazon Prime or Netflix or, Peacock, anything like that? God, I hope not, because if you're not a subscriber to those, like, are you really gonna subscribe just to watch a single horse race event or a few horse racing events? Um, as somebody who is not a member of Peacock, like, I hope they don't put it on that. Because then we will be trying to find a good buddy to invite us over for a viewing party. But what's the end goal? Like that's just it. Like, what are they trying to
I think
accomplish?
that's something you gotta ask Churchill. They have not
I'd
really come
love
out to
to.
say
Can we
what
get the
they're
CEO of Churchill in here,
yeah,
please?
they've
Like,
not
I would love
like,
to
I don't think
sit
Churchill has
down. I've
said
got questions.
yeah, I don't think Churchill's really come out and said why they wanted to do this. They've just said, "Hey, they wanna get the rights of
Yeah,
it." Not they haven't given a reason.
yeah, and
That's
that's fine. But obviously, they're doing it to try and further their sport.
mhm,
For the betterment of their sport.
and to make money.
And to make
Mhm,
money, yes. But that also goes hand in hand
yeah,
too. It's horse racing's a dying sport. After the Kentucky Derby and the Triple
yeah.
Crown, like, how much is horse racing?
Uh,
how much
in the US, it's
do you
not
get?
that
Yeah, like,
big.
it's just not. It's
Yeah,
just
outside those 3 races, and especially when you don't get the Derby winner racing in
yeah,
the
and
second
all
leg.
those topics we touched on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I agree with the dying sport thing. I think with sports betting now, I think there is a lot more money that's suddenly back into horse racing.
betting
So I
on
think that
versus
Do you guys have a Twin Spires account? Like,
yeah,
or any kind of app that you were using to bet on the Derby?
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
it's something, right?
wife does.
Something. Okay. After the Derby ended, we're now, what, 2 weeks removed, 2.5
Mhm.
weeks removed. Have you guys placed any other bets on
Yes.
that app?
I have not.
I have
Yes.
not either. That's
Mhm.
two-thirds of us, and I
Just now,
still
just imagine if they kept that going for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks for the
Yeah.
Triple Crown, and they kept those
Yeah.
people engaged, and they got more money, they got more bets, they got the celebrities to start showing back up at the Preakness again.
yeah, I think that
Um,
you gotta
That's why you
make it
gotta
more of an event and more of a draw,
yeah.
because it's just not right now. Um,
Belmont is, but
the
Preakness is not.
but why is the Belmont? Like, I don't think the
I
Belmont has any more draw than a
I
Preakness
think
does.
being the location, being up in New York helps it, and you get a lot more people up there, more celebrities that are gonna be more interested in that, and there's more money up there too.
All right, that's it, gentlemen. We're gonna have to
So, yeah,
go.
let
We're gonna
Shifting
have to go to the
gears.
Preakness,
yeah,
and we're gonna have to go to the Belmont. We're gonna have to do some in-person
research.
verification,
Yes,
Yes,
some
yes,
QA
and
that's a
analysis on
yes.
this, and
great idea.
so we'll see what happens. Obviously, this is a huge topic for Churchill Downs, for the state of Maryland, to try to figure out what's going to happen. I assume that Maryland is probably going to come up with the money
Yeah.
to
I think
purchase
we're all in
that, but
agreement
it's going to
there.
come down to, they've already invested a lot of money into the Pimlico track itself this year.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but just huge topic for the horse racing industry, and obviously here in Louisville with Churchill Downs. So let's pivot here, guys, from the racetrack to the hardwood. We do have another big shakeup in college basketball. The NCAA announced that they are going to be expanding March Madness from 68 to 76 teams. Essentially, the first four that takes place in Dayton is going to be going away, and we'll now get a 24-team, 12-game opening round that's going to be split across Tuesday and Wednesday. Initial thoughts on expanding the field?
I'm torn on it. I think you're absolutely diluting a beautiful event. Everything was perfect at 64. Yeah, you had your teams that didn't make it that would bemoan and groan and why didn't we get in? Why did they get in over us? Da 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 da. Da. But it was set perfectly at 64. They had a good thing.
60
No, 64.
you don't like the 68? You don't like the plans?
Why? Why do we need the plans?
That was probably more due to more teams coming up in D1 anything, but
I personally think that it was perfect at 64. And
Well, I
this is my
yeah,
opinion.
okay.
yeah.
My opinion. I think they had a good thing at 64. Win your conference tournament and you're in. You know, if you're not an at-large bid, win your conference tournament. That's what it boils down to. Who's hot late. Um and then okay, they expanded to the 68. You get this is where I also disagree with the NCAA. I think if you win your conference tournament, you should be in the field. I don't think you should be in one of the playing games. Honestly like
I don't
to-
disagree with that.
because we always call it the first four.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's a part of the NCAA bracket.
Well, they've fixed that now, so that's going away.
Did they?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, they're
Did
they're
they?
calling it the first round now. So
They
it's just like what we talked about with Churchill Downs a minute ago, right? It's about money. First four did not. People were not watching that. They didn't care. Even when they're filling out their brackets, they're just picking.
Mhm.
Oh, is the first four winner going to win the next game, right? So nobody cared about that game at all.
Well, and
But now they've
you
turned it
got both
around.
teams.
Now they've turned it around, and they actually are putting more value on that. It's going to help TV viewership because people are actually going to be watching some of those games.
Well, and I watched most of the first 4 games. Like, it was tournament basketball,
Mhm.
you know?
I
I the more and more I've thought on it, and the more I like, because if you win one of those first round games, those first 4 games, or now it's gonna be the first 12 games, you still got a unit as far as whenever they divide up the money from the NCAA tournament. So if your team wins a game, you get a unit of share from the big giant jackpot that they have all this money coming in that you would split with your conference. So I do kind of like the fact that some of these schools are playing against, you have a 16 seed versus a potential another 16 seed. And if you win a share of that money. of that for your conference.
I like your
So
point
I
of
kind of I'm kind of coming off the fence on that. I kind of do like, having the lower seeds. I mean, that's a ton of money for a
okay,
lot of
I
these
like your idea of
schools.
you win your conference championship, you shouldn't be in that first 12
Yeah, like
games
yeah,
because you're also if you win, then you also gotta travel again, which I think puts you at a disadvantage.
it,
But,
it can absolutely. Yeah,
no, I if you're doing this, I like the idea of, okay, your bubble teams that didn't win should be in those games
say that
because
again. Bubble
the
teams.
bubble teams that don't win your conference tournament
Yeah,
should be that's who those
in
games
one of the
should be
first
for.
first round
First
games
12
played in
games,
Dayton. Yeah,
yes.
no,
I would
I agree.
I
I
think that makes because you're also then giving the teams that won the conference championship, you gotta get some sort of other
yeah,
it gives them an incentive
you're
to
looking
keep
at your
playing.
like
Yeah.
20 and 12,
20 and
Indiana
12,
or
yeah.
Kentucky teams or a
It's
down Louisville team, something like that. They have a chance
it's
to still
still
make the
not
tournament
gonna
and make their run.
solve the problem where, this year you had Auburn complain they didn't get in versus I forgot who got in over Auburn, but you're still gonna have that
Like
same situation.
Miami of Ohio, maybe.
Maybe, I don't but you're still gonna have the same situation where the 77th team is gonna be like, "Well, why didn't we get
Yeah,
in?"
you're
Versus
never gonna get that
yeah,
unless
it's
you
not
have
solving that
everybody in.
problem. Yeah.
Unless you have everybody get in,
It's
there's
not
always gonna be a complaint of
it's
why
not
didn't we
Kentucky
get
high
in?
school football where everybody gets in, but
Well, what do you all think
Right.
about the mid-major part of this? Because if you're saying that the the SEC, the Big Ten, all of those teams, in the last couple of years, right? They still have teams that don't make the cut that there's an argument for because of how tough their schedule is to play in those conferences versus the mid majors that whether they won their conference tournament or they're on the bubble. Um, what are what are your all's thoughts about this? Because the NCAA is saying, hey, this is more opportunities for student athletes, but isn't it really more opportunities for these big conferences to get more teams into the tournament?
Personally, yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, how many times has the first 4 out and the next 4 out been a mid-major? A fair
quite
share.
a few.
Yeah, like, so, you would be giving them an extra opportunity to, make it into the bracket,
Yeah, I mean, you could
as well
then
as your
play
mid-made or your,
a
mid middle of the pack Power 5
yeah, you
school.
could get a play against a Power 4 team, but at the same time, if that mid-major wins their conference tournament, they should get into the first round, round of 64 automatically.
Yeah.
And versus if they didn't win their conference if they come runner up, but they get first place in their regular season, yeah, they could go there. They could qualify for that if they or maybe not qualify, but that would be a better spot for them. But I don't know if it
hold
how it
on.
affects the mid majors that much more than it does currently. Like, what it I
I
don't see
just think
how it affects
I still
that.
yeah.
my thought is that the resume of those SEC or Big Ten, Big 12, whatever it is, the resume of those teams is still going to cause the
It's
mid
not
majors to get kicked out.
it's not solving the problem that you currently have at 68 versus 76.
Well, that's what I'm
Correct.
saying.
It's
Correct.
It's
Like
helping those big money programs
it's helping
get
them
into the
more.
tournament.
What it's doing is it's allowing, for example, like Auburn this year would draw more TV audience than Miami of Ohio. That's essentially the reason they're doing that. So they could get those quote unquote big name schools that's on the bubble, put them in there to get the extra viewership that week to make the money. That's all this is about. It's money. That's not, they don't care about the student athletes. If you can give me one example of the NCAA really caring about the NCAA athletes and doing something good for them instead of their pocketbook, show me. It's not there. So the NCAA only cares about money. That's it. And getting the bigger name schools, as many big name schools for the TV money in the tournament as possible. That's all they care about.
It's hard to argue with that. Yeah, like, I think you're absolutely right. It's like we talked about with the horse racing. It's
Yeah.
all about money. Everything in sports nowadays
Yeah.
is about the money. What can we do to increase revenue? Add more games? Deal. Add
Mhm.
more, uh, televised games? Deal. We can sell this,
Yeah.
more um, you know, to
So
CBS and whoever or TNT and, whoever TBS broadcasts these games. Yeah, it's a money draw. You're
yeah.
going from 4 extra games now to 12.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be interesting to see if you got teams that, from Power 4 league versus a mid-major, if they'll put the Power 4 team in over the mid-major now, especially this year with the more teams. see if they can get more TV views, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know, because a lot of the times, like, you're not looking at a big name school that's you're worried about making, the first 4 out or the next 4 out. Like, a lot of times, your big North Carolinas, Kentucky's,
Last year was
Kansas are already
Carolina was
in.
put in over somebody that shouldn't have been in. I don't remember who it was, but they were put in
And
strictly because of the name Carolina, North
yeah,
Carolina.
well,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna argue that. That happens probably a lot.
Yes.
And matchups too probably happen that way a lot,
Mhm.
with viewership in mind. However, that's the nature of the beast right
Yeah.
now. As far as the mid majors, I don't think it affects them that much. I think they might get a couple extra schools in, obviously, that they wouldn't have normally. I think the Power Five schools are going to get a couple extra schools in that they wouldn't normally. Obviously, when you're expanding it by 12 extra uh, games, it's going to happen that way. Um, I think the way they're going to do it though leaves a little something to be talked about. They're going to have all 4 16 seeds compete
Yeah.
in this 12th
I
game, and all
don't
4
like that idea
15
personally, but
seeds are
hey,
going to compete. Like, they're still going to have to win to get in the
yeah.
main bracket.
And again, that's where you have your conference tournament winners. Like, I like your point. They should automatically get into the round of 64. You put the teams that are on
Yeah.
the bubble that
Mm.
didn't win their tournament, their
Yeah.
conference tournament in those playoffs.
Well, then you draw up the idea of if they win, like if they go and you win, if Bellarmine wins the Ace Sun,
Yeah.
are they really one of the top 64 teams
Maybe
in
not, but
college basketball?
okay, then why play the conference tournaments
Exactly.
if you're not gonna do that?
Exactly. Money. Money.
So do you all think that 21% of the basketball teams should make the tournament? Because that's the reality of it. 21% of
21%.
teams.
I mean,
Is that with the new
It is.
76?
Yeah. So 21%, that means that we're going to start having teams with 17, 18 wins getting into the tournament. Even I think even Mike Krzyzewski, the former Duke legend, said that, flatly this is really just going to help the power teams get into the field. It's going to help those teams that are right there in, let's say, the SEC that have 17 or 18 wins that would not have made it in the previous years and
yeah.
probably would have declined going to the NIT or some other tournament. They're gonna get in, and then if they win, like you said, Jimbo, they're gonna win a share of that, money for the tournament if they win a game.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's. But then you have to you make an argument as like, okay, is that a successful season if we're in one of these power conferences and we squeak into the tournament for the opening round? I guess it
What
just
if
depends on what your expectations were for the season.
Well, we've seen teams go on play in the first 4 and make the final 4. BCU, we've seen it. Like, it happens. It can happen. If you get a 21-13 team, mediocre, mid-level, Big 10 or Big 12 SEC team get in, why can't they win 4 or 5 in a row? They absolutely can. It's all about
in the current
Yes.
NIL environment.
I believe so.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Like, it's still 5-on-5, guys. It's
It is.
still 5-on-5.
I would almost like this will never happen, but make it a requirement. You have to have a 500 percentage or higher in your conference to also qualify for the tournament.
Well, but
'Cause do you
then
put a
what?
team,
Then why?
Power 5 team that's 8-12?
You
and-
mean in their conference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus
I don't know.
mid
What did
major
they?
that goes
But what did they do out of their conference?
14-1?
If they played 6 top 10 teams out of conference and went 5-1 or 4-2,
The argument is
that's
Power
pretty
4
solid.
Power 4 conferences are much better. They're playing quality teams in their conference, and
No,
they've
that's-
proven they cannot beat them.
But no, that's
So
what I'm
why
saying.
should
But if
you
they
be
play,
rewarded?
but if they play out of conference opponents who are ranked, and they go 5-1 against them or 4-2 against them, where they have a winning record out of conference. I don't
conference.
think you can punish them for having a
But
rough
then-
in-conference schedule.
Don't see why not.
Well, because
You're punishing
but
teams
you're-
for playing weak out of non-conference.
No. You're not rewarding teams
Yeah,
for
so
playing strong.
Why would you
out of
reward teams
conference.
for losing?
I'm not saying you're rewarding teams
Yes,
for
you are.
losing. No.
'Cause you're
I don't think you're listening to
giving them
my
benefit of the
argument.
doubt.
No, I'm not. I'm saying, okay, I'm agreeing. They went subpar in their conference. But what did they do out of their conference? What if they played Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, Louisville, and went 4-1, 3-1 against them?
They're never going to get to schedule those teams.
Agreed.
I mean,
I'm completely using this as a hypothetical.
right.
But if they schedule tough teams, they have a winning record out of conference tough teams. That's got to count for something. Otherwise, why are they scheduling Gonzaga, Kentucky, Florida? Why are they scheduling them if they're not like? Why would Louisville?
won't those teams play the mid-majors?
Why would Louisville schedule Gonzaga, Kentucky, Florida, Baylor if they're good? Like, why would you schedule solid teams if your out of conference schedule, their strength of schedule doesn't matter?
TV money.
No, because then if you have a crap year and you
Scott,
are sub
yeah.
500 in your conference, you have no argument. You're out.
I'm just saying,
But I know, but I'm saying the out of conference matters. You can't just go off of your conference record.
Well, the mid majors are in a tough spot because
Yeah,
those teams are not going to schedule those teams because they don't want to lose. A Duke,
Exactly.
UK, whoever it is, they don't want to schedule
Yeah.
many mid majors, right? Because it doesn't look good for them if they lose those games.
Yeah, we're seeing that in football
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the mid majors,
Yeah.
they can't get those teams on the schedule. And Wilkie, you were suggesting maybe we eliminate the conference tournament play-in, into the tournament, but I think that's the only way that they can get in as of right now, unless
I'm
we're
saying not eliminate it. They are automatically in the field of our first round of 64 if they
Yeah,
win.
that's what
If
I'm
they
saying.
win
Yeah,
their conference.
yes.
tournament.
Yeah. But I think that like they're running out of ways to get in the tournament,
They are.
and the bigger conferences are finding more ways to get in now that the field has expanded even more. It's more favorable for the big schools, the big money programs to squeak in over the mid majors. The mid majors just are at a disadvantage because one, money, but two, recruits.
Yeah.
Three, they can't schedule any of these big
Yeah.
teams to show that they're good enough. And then to your argument, Jimbo, if they don't win the games in their conference and then they go and upset a big money team, what does that really say? I mean, it says, okay, they were able to
Yeah.
pull off an upset, but they weren't able to win the games in their conference. So what does it really matter? Like if they couldn't beat the teams that we are saying are not as good as the team they beat, that doesn't really help their argument.
Well, it just shows the parity in college basketball. On any given night, like you may play in the toughest conference, but you may beat up good teams from other conferences. Like that happens. It absolutely happens. I think you need to be rewarded for out of conference wins, but I also do think you need to be punished for having a subpar in conference record. But there's got to be a balance. Otherwise, why schedule some of these teams? Why schedule a Michigan State? If you're Louisville or Kentucky, like why? Why? If you're only looking at the conference,
At that
why?
point, why have conferences? Football's
Well,
probably gonna
we're
go that way.
we're getting in danger of getting out of that
It
too.
might make more sense, but ultimately, expanding the field to 76, I really don't think changes that much for the mid majors because you're still going to have the point of the 77 team's going to be mad they didn't get in. The 78 team, it doesn't
Well, and with
change that.
well,
It
but
just
it-
gets more money to the NCAA.
but with
That's all this is
a 30 game schedule, you definitely need to schedule some teams that, if you're a Power 5 conference, yes, you do need to schedule some cupcakes. We can all agree
Yeah.
there's got to be 3 or 4 teams, Northwest, Southeastern state that you need to schedule, work out some kinks of yourself as a team. But then also you don't always want to jump into schedule non-conference Power 5. Like I think they're still going to keep mid majors on the schedule. It just might be a little fewer of them because their conference schedule is so tough. I think that's where it differs in football. Football, you're only looking at a 12-game schedule, and if you're playing 8 or 9 in-conference games, then yeah, the remaining 2 or 3 should be cupcakes because you're going to prove what you need to prove as you play the conference. Basketball is a little different with a larger schedule, and I think that you can have quality wins outside of your conference, along with some easier teams that you should dominate for sure. I think basketball has a little bit more leeway on that than college football does for sure.
So what do you all think about this? So under the new format with the expanded field, the 12 lowest seeded automatic qualifiers, so
Yep.
the teams that win their smaller conference tournaments are being put into that opening round. Thoughts on how that impacts those teams?
I don't think he gives the full experience of being part of the NCAA tournament, which is what you're supposed to get by winning your conference tournament.
I'm honestly on the fence on it. Yeah, I think it's unfair to ask certain teams to have to play an extra game.
'Cause they've
Why
already
Yeah.
isn't
yeah, I
Kentucky
don't
and Duke and North Carolina and Kansas playing an extra game?
if yeah,
Like, if they're already the top dog, you know,
you should be
they should be
excluded
able to do
yeah,
that.
you should be excluded from the first 12 games if you win your conference
And if
tournament.
you wanna make the comment about money and generating revenue, well, who has
Put your
the
bigger
who
name schools in there
Right, exactly,
that are
Adam.
not
Yes,
automatically
yes.
that don't win their conference tournament.
Who's got the bigger draw? Wichita State or Kansas? Who's gonna draw more viewership? So
You're
why
not gonna
wouldn't you
put
ask them to play another game? You're not going to do that,
no, you would have to
but
put the teams that are you gotta be on, what, say 40th or higher on the
yeah,
rankings to be there's gotta be some sort of qualifications
which is
to
why
qualify for that.
64 was perfect.
No, I don't think any of us really disagree,
I
64 was
but
it.
yeah.
They had the
it's
number. It was the right amount of teams. 128 is too many, and I
it's
mean,
money. That's all let's be honest, it all boils
why are
down
you giving 40 teams a bye, essentially? That's what they're
yes.
doing.
But to Adam, to your point about it was a 21% make it, I don't think that's an unreasonable percentage. Champion's always gonna come out of the top 20% regardless, I feel like,
Sure, but
so
look at other
We could say
sports. I
it's
mean,
gonna
look
come
at
out of the top 10%.
yeah. I think you look at some of the other sports. I mean, this is by far across college athletics the most teams that make it into the postseason
Oh, yeah.
tournament, right? I mean, and then I guess the question becomes where do they stop? Do they stop at 76? I don't see them stopping at
No,
76. They're
no.
going to go until
They're gonna
they
go to
have
96 at
yeah,
one
they're going
point.
to go until they have a whole entire new first
Mhm.
round of the tournament to get more teams in, which I think waters down the product. It's just there's certain teams that just they don't deserve to get in, right? I think there has to be some sort of validation that they are good enough to get into the tournament, but if we keep expanding it, where is that line? It kind of
So
becomes blurred.
the NCAA owns the rights to the NIT, don't they?
I believe so.
Why not try to put more money into that?
Was
Make that a better
Yeah,
product
nobody
by
Because
really wants to
nobody wants
play,
to
yeah.
go to the NIT. If you win
but
the
you could
NIT,
make you could keep the field
do you
at
get to hold the
68 or
trophy up that
64.
says national champion?
No,
No, like,
but
nobody wants to play
it
for that tournament. Like,
okay, at this point, are they then just gonna get rid of the NIT?
I mean, we already saw last year
no, because
there
it's
was
still
one of the
money.
tournaments, one of the other sub tournaments. I
CIB?
can't remember which one, but it collapsed last year. They canceled. It was whatever the one past the NIT was
CIB maybe?
because nobody wants
Yeah.
The
nobody
College
wants it,
Basketball
right?
Invitational, CBI?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't know if it's CIB,
Nobody
CBI.
I
wants
don't
it.
know.
The athletes also don't want it, right?
Well, then you
There's too
risk
much risk.
injury.
There's too
Yeah.
much risk for them, and if you're a mid-major, there's no I mean, some of those teams might wanna compete, right? But the big name schools are not gonna compete in those,
Yeah. I mean,
non-important
Well,
this
tournaments.
I
is
don't know.
not
How much money are
kindergarten.
we talking?
We're not playing kindergarten sports,
How
elementary sports where you get a participation trophy either.
how much money
So
how much money do I get if I win a game in the NIT?
yeah.
Like in the NCAA tournament, if you get a win, you get a unit of revenue
Yeah.
that you split between your conferences. Now, earlier I said I was on the fence about, these 12 teams or these extra games, because if you're a 15 seed and a 16 seed in the NCAA tournament, as a university, you've got a much more competitive shot to win that first game, which is the same as if you were to win against a 1 seed. That money is the same. If you're a 16 seed and you're slotted against a 1 seed, if you win X amount of dollars. Now, this coming year with the first round of 12 games, you're a 16 seed still, but now you're going up against a 16 seed. And if you win, you still win the same amount of money as if you upset the 1 seed. You have a much better chance to claim money for your conference. And at the end of the day, isn't that what this is all about? Is money. Is money for the universities, is money for the NCAA.
It's money for the NCAA. They don't care about the
Well,
universities.
no, and I'm not saying that they do, but the universities care about the
They
universities,
do.
and this is their way to earn a share. Like, if Bellarmine goes up against Southeast Missouri State and the winner of that is a 16 seed, they're gonna get their $300,000. By the way, so this past year, it was $330,000 paid out over 6 years. So, for 6 years, they're gonna get $330,000 because they won an NCAA tournament game last year. Now, granted, they have to split that with all the teams in their conferences, but that's a nice chunk of change for some of these schools, for a lot of these schools. So
Are you talking about the NIT? Are you
no,
talking about
no,
the
the
part-
NCAA. No, the NCAA tournament.
They're getting 330,000
For
paid
each
over
win,
6 years.
they got it for each win.
Yeah, they're getting, but that's then paid over 6 years, you're saying.
Yes.
So they're not getting, I mean, that's, I don't know
That
what that comes out to be over
I don't
6
know,
years,
but that's more than if they didn't win. And you have a better chance of winning if you go up against teams that you're more equally matched.
But if it
I
goes
think
into
the
the
draw
conference
could be,
pool,
but I think the draw could be a little more exciting. Like, we talked about going to 126 and that it's watered down. Hey, man, if you're going up against an equally matched team, it's entertainment for us fans. Like, and that's what we love. We love the underdogs, but we also love good games that come down to the wire. And you're going to see a lot of that when teams are evenly matched. And that's what this first 12 games do. Like, they're designed to compete and have evenly matched games. And you get a 1 versus 16, how evenly matched, how entertaining are those games? Now, there are a few, and I'm not going to say they're not. I know we had a couple 1 seeds that got pushed to the final few minutes in just this past year's tournament. But that's not the norm. That's not the norm. They're very seldom are they
would you make the
competitive
argument?
matches.
I'd be curious to know if those 1 and 16s were those 16 seeds ones that played in the first 4 round at Dayton.
I can't really remember that
Does that
offhand.
give them those teams a competitive advantage by playing an extra game by
I can
getting used to that?
hop on the laptop here and do some research.
Kinda
But
being in that
offhand, buddy,
environment.
I don't know.
So I did
be
I did
interesting
want
to
to
see that.
I did want to jump in really quick. So Jimbo, you mentioned it's like $2 million per unit for for a win in the NCAA tournament, which is divided out over whatever it is, the 6-year period
Yeah.
that they divide that out. But the catch is that money goes to the conference, not the schools.
Yeah.
So
So it would
that
be
money
paid
is
out.
conference money, not school money. So
Oh, I thought it was divided between the schools in the conference.
no, it goes directly to the conference, and the conference decides
They
what to do with that
redistribute
money.
it out?
Yeah, so it's up to the conference
I
then
see.
to pay that out. Now that's the other place where you look at all the big schools that are in the tournament, right? They're all getting, if they get wins, they're getting a piece, that's all going to the conference. You've got these mid-majors that might get, maybe 1 or 2 schools in, compared to whatever it is, 8, 9 schools. What did we have? Was the ACC?
What?
What was the
13,
last
10 or
14?
11, 12.
Yeah,
Getting
just
up
the-
there.
yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
getting up there.
Yeah.
They're gonna wanna put the NCAA, if they would put more money in the Power 4 conferences than the mid-majors.
Well, but
what
that's
they
your
want.
money draw too.
It is.
That's
That ultimately doesn't do the mid-majors any good. At that point, it doesn't matter whether it's 64, 68, or 76.
does if they win.
But if
It
they gotta
does-
get But if the NCAA
it-
wants to get their bigger names in, they're gonna give them the nod over the mid-major, so it doesn't
Sure.
matter. You could,
So
unless
let's say-
you have 354 teams in the bracket, mid-majors are gonna be always at a disadvantage.
But only if they play Power 5. And even some of those, nuh-uh.
No, it's because
We've seen
NCAA
we've seen
cares
some
about
very
money.
solid mid-major
Oh, there's
schools. Now,
been
granted,
great
this was
mid-major schools.
pre-NIL.
Yeah.
And that's another that's another big
It's another
factor.
topic for another day.
Well, it is, but that's the NIL is another big factor that some of these schools can have over mid majors. But like you said, another topic, another conversation for
Mhm.
another day. But
Yeah.
if they can get 2 wins, why not? Like, if they, a lot of times, if they weren't even going to be in the first place.
The NCAA doesn't want mid-majors in there, I don't think. They would rather have their big name, Power 4 schools because it's a bigger draw,
yeah.
bigger TV market, more
Of
money
course.
for everybody.
But they could have.
They like the Cinderella
I
story,
disagree
but
with that.
push comes to shove, if you give me a blue blood or a Power 4 team
But
over
what if
any
the
mid-major,
Cinderella
NCAA is
becomes
gonna
a
say
blue
yes.
blood? What if the Cinderella ends up having
They
a
still
long
consider
history?
UCLA a blue blood, and they haven't done anything in the last 20 years.
What's Kentucky done in the last 20 years? They have 1 title.
It's more than UCLA.
It is, but I'm just saying, like, there's a larger parity. But what if a mid major becomes a blue blood
Well, I think that's a huge struggle for them, right? Because they
Yeah.
have to have consistent money year over year. 1 year does not make,
at
you
work
know,
for Gonzaga?
does not make a huge well, it works for them in the short term. We'll have to see how that works for them in the long term. I think
Gonzaga?
They haven't
I
won a
think a
tournament.
school like
They haven't won a championship.
Duke, UK, UConn, right? Those schools are going to have money to invest in these programs for years to come. The small mid majors, that's a question, right? Year over year, are those going to be there? Are they going to be able to compete? If they don't make the tournament, is that funding going to
Yes.
dry up? Is that program going to shut down? Like those are legitimate questions now with all this money being invested into the big programs. Can those mid majors still compete
That's the
from
other
a
thing
financial
you
perspective?
brought up. Mid majors probably will put more money into football because that's where the money is. Gonzaga
But a
doesn't
lot of
really
mid
have
majors,
football.
but as I say, but a
They
lot of
can
mid
put the
majors
money in
don't have.
basketball.
Neither does UConn.
That's why you see those
Does
2 games.
Creighton have a
UConn does
football
have football,
team?
actually. They're independent.
Well, that's why UConn has been so
Oh,
successful.
right.
It's
Yeah,
Yes.
because
sorry.
they've
Yeah, yeah.
invested all their money into
In basketball.
basketball. They don't have the expense of
They don't
football,
yeah, they don't
but
have
they
to
also don't have that revenue.
like a Western Kentucky, they're gonna put more money into football than they would basketball because that's where their revenue is.
I'm just saying it's possible. Like these mid majors can go on a run and they can go on a
They could.
consistent
It's
run. And we've seen it. Like not even Gonzaga, but Creighton has always been a name that people look at when they, look at the NCAA tournament like, oh boy,
look at all the
oh
what's
boy.
the Big East schools. Most I'd argue probably what, 90 maybe?
Villanova, yeah.
How
I
many of them
mean,
have football teams?
uh,
Handful? A couple?
in what, Big
Villanova
East? None
yeah.
of no, none
Yeah,
of them.
Villanova, UConn, they have football teams. They're independent or 1AA, but or whatever that
For the
is.
most
And
no, for the most part that
you see those teams do
UConn's your
better.
outlier, but your Xaviers, your Villanovas, like no, they are a basketball
Yeah, that's why
conference.
you see them generally do a little bit better in basketball. Those the non-mid majors.
I think a lot of it has to do with your coach. A lot of it has to do with the obviously the recruits you bring in, but your program success. Like Mark Few is a coach that kids want to play for. NIL, yes, but when you're looking at X's and O's, like there's not a lot better than Mark Few. Jay Wright had the same thing at Villanova. Xavier's produced how many coaches that have gone on to other programs. You're looking at Thad Matta, uh, uh, Sean Miller,
Sean Miller.
a lot of other Chris Mack,
Mhm.
had I know he didn't do much at Louisville, but when he was at Xavier, they did really, really, really good
They had a
things.
couple of good teams there,
Um,
and then just
yeah,
COVID happened and
and that and
went a different direction. But
exactly. So like I think the coach has a lot to do with
that was
the mid
also a different
majors.
time where NIL was not as
Well, and that's another beast
Yeah,
for another story
it's
of another time. Yeah,
fundamentally changed, the way college basketball is
it absolutely. Yeah.
at the moment. And you look at the coaches who have been able to get their fan base to contribute money and get the big donors to contribute money. Those are the teams that are going to have success year over year now because
Mhm.
they're able to have that money to pay and try to bring in these players. There's no guarantee they're going to be able to get these players. As we see
As
with like
Kentucky sees
Kentucky is
now,
finding
yeah.
out right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
give them all the
absolutely.
money you want, and
Yeah.
Yeah, even when
Coach Whiffendorf.
they get the money, it doesn't always translate to wins.
All right, gentlemen, let's transition really quick. Let's get back to local sports here. High school ranks. I think we'll probably make this our last topic because we covered a couple others really, really heavily there. But the high school baseball tournaments are happening now. They're going to be starting the big seventh region tournament here in Louisville is going to be starting on Monday. That has some of the top teams in the state, including Trinity, St. X, Mail, Manual. So some really big teams coming out of that. I wanted to get your all's kind of prediction for that. They have switched to a 15-team bracket this year in the seventh region, which makes it a little bit more difficult. You've got more games to play, and only one of those teams makes it to the state tournament. What are your all's thoughts?
I mean, I think Trinity's gonna be coming out of that. They're ranked, according to Max Prep, number 4 nationally. They've yet to lose to an in-state school. This year, they're the defending state champion. I don't see anybody beating them, at least on paper, but
I mean, St. X will give them they'll give them they'll make it tough on them.
St. X
Yeah,
Manual
they'll
would they can make it tough, but I just don't see it happening. I mean,
on I mean, on pa I mean, I'm not gonna bet against them,
yeah,
obviously. I'm not gonna bet against them, but At the same time, I wouldn't bet against them if they were the 10th best team. So that's what happens when it's your alma mater. But no, on paper they should come through at this. But at the same time, Trinity and Saint X are two of the top teams in the state. And only one gets to go on to the state tournament. I've got a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think if both of those teams were to meet in the finals of the region, and you need to start voicing your opinion of why can't both of these teams play for the state title? But that's just the way it's set up right now. Obviously, every year they're not going to be the top two teams, or two of the top teams in the state. So, um, I think that system's a little bit flawed, but it's what we have right now. And
Yeah, there's definitely an argument that multiple teams from the 7th region should be making it to
Mhm.
the state tournament.
Yeah, yeah, St.
but if
X
you
is number
give
2, yeah.
or maybe
Yeah,
say
Vikings.
maybe we should expand the bracket.
There you go.
Maybe
Yeah.
we should say the top two teams from each region it qualify for the state tournament.
So the KHSAA will make more off their
They
streaming
will,
service?
yes, they will be the new NCAA.
Well, I think you've also got to look. You guys mentioned Trinity and St. X, but I think we also have to mention Ballard. They've gotten a couple big wins this year over St. X. And then Mayo is 25-5. They have one of the highest RPIs in the state. I think that this could be wide open. You know, any what we say, any given Sunday, right? Like,
Right.
you know, any of those matchups could go either way. Right now, I think we all kind of agree Trinity is the top team. But in this tournament format where you win or go home, I think anybody can win. And there are just some really good teams in that 7th region, which starts on Monday. Any let's see, a couple of the matchups that we have. So we've got St. X hosting Seneca.
Mhm.
KCD is going to be traveling to Trinity. Ballard's going to host Wagner, and Mayo is going to be going um,
Central.
to Central.
Yeah.
Yes. So a couple big games there.
And Manuel's going up against Bye.
Yeah, they'll get the winner of Atherton and Eastern.
There you go. Yeah.
No, Manuel
Yes.
Manuel
Yeah.
has a bye into the
Yeah,
quarterfinals.
That's right.
Yeah.
With the blind draw, they got that.
Yeah.
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 That's nice.
All
I
right.
mean,
Well, I know
yeah.
we'll be watching a lot of high school baseball here this week to kind of see how that 7th region turns out. We're obviously supporting all the teams here in the 502, so our predictions are just predictions. But gentlemen, one last thing: the Louisville Kings. This just was it yesterday? They beat the DC Defenders 33-30 to officially put themselves in playoff contention. What was your reaction to that win by the Kings at Lynn Family Stadium?
I was impressed. They went into DC a week ago and hung 30 on the Defenders. And so I was, can they do it again? And sure enough, they came home, put up 33 on them. They riding momentum, man. 2 games left to go in the season. They control 4th place currently. They're so that would put them in the playoffs, top 4 advance. I think if they can get at least one of their next 2, they should be in. But hey, Coach Brom, Coach Brom, Coach Redmond,
Yeah.
Coach Redmond, keep it going. I've got my United We Reign Louisville Kings shirt on. So we here at the 502 are going to be watching, going to be rooting and cheering you guys on. Best of luck. And go Kings. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, great thing is, DC's they're spot ahead of Louisville, so at least they own
Yeah.
the tiebreaker
And
if
they got 2
tied.
wins over them. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. I know Birmingham's right behind Louisville, which beat Louisville the first game of the year, so it'll be interesting. But, that trade they made for quarterback in midseason, I was a little iffy on, but ever since he's come in, they've done really well, gelled really well, and really starting to put it together. And glad to see Coach Redmond get his first home win.
Mm.
Well
Yeah.
deserved. I know their home games, they've been some really good games and kinda had some bad luck in their losses, so glad to see them finally get their first home win.
Yeah, getting off the losing streak at
Yeah.
home is definitely great. There's been some great crowds out to see
Yes.
this team so far in their first season here in Louisville, and those moves that they made a few weeks ago, obviously, huge things. Cutting Benny Snell, the trade that you mentioned, Adam, that has really seemed to turn this team around.
Yeah.
Especially offensively, they've just looked so much better offensively. So really cheering on the Louisville Kings here as they try to finish out the season and make the playoffs. There are some other big games coming up. Louisville City and Racing Louisville are on the road this weekend. They will be playing tonight, and so those are a couple big games. Racing Louisville coming off a huge home win against the top team in the league. Portland last week. So really looking forward to kind of supporting both of those teams. And then obviously the Bats schedule's in full swing as well. So we're kind of keeping up with how the Bats are performing. They've got another home game tonight
Yeah.
as well. So
We were out
um,
there earlier. Their bats games they're a lot of fun. We took the kids out there. It's a great family environment, and I think they were last I heard they were what 1 or 2 games out of first place.
yeah, I think
Um,
they're having a good year. So
yeah,
it's there's a
they
lot of really cool things
yeah,
happening right now in the 502, and hope that you all get out and support all the teams that we have here, because we want to keep those teams, right? So
yeah.
we got to
Yeah.
keep supporting them
They're
and go out and show up.
yeah, they're 1.5 games out of first place, and I think if you win, they split their in the minor leagues. They split it first half, second half. So they start the second half 0-0, but winning the first half of the season, they get to host playoff games at home. So get out there, support the bats, and
And
cheer them on to
bring the
yeah.
kiddos. It's a good time.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. All right, everybody. Well, we appreciate you tuning in for another edition of 502 Sports brought to you by our friends at Take Tie. We want to remind you that there are some promo codes on our social media platforms for Take Tie. Definitely use those. Go out and support our friends that are supporting our local coverage here of sports in the 502. And for Jimmy Nolan and Adam Wilkinson, I am Adam Hitt. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time for another edition of 502 Sports.